Okay, so today we're doing our quick review of Captain America #1 by Ta-Nehisi Coates, which there's been some concern about on the internet or complaints about. What were your thoughts?
I actually quite liked it. The word I would use to describe it is ambiguous.
Mm-hmm.
All the way through, it's playing with those ideas of ambiguity. And that's one of the interesting things around criticism, is a good text is actually open to interpretation.
Yeah.
It doesn't say there is one reading. One of the things that I was interested in was the construction of the government, and especially their sidelining of Captain America at the end, in favor of Bucky Barnes and Sharon Carter, who are more morally ambiguous characters. And there's two ways of reading that. One of it is that they are those morally ambiguous characters, and so the government is obviously evil, and this sort of right-wing, difficult government. And that, you could say, is commenting on contemporary politics, because it's a new president who wants his own people in there, who wants to do things in his own way. So in that way, you could say that it's a very leftist, anti-contemporary government comment. But at the same time, the people he's brought in were fighting Hydra. And Bucky has been pardoned. And we love Bucky.
Yep.
So in some ways you could say it's pro this government and anti the fascist notions of Captain America. And so Captain America's persona could be seen as being suspect, especially considering this is coming out of Secret Empire.
Yeah, I don't know where I'd plug it currently in terms of contemporary politics, and in a lot of ways, I like that. To me, I mean, one of the things people were complaining about in some of the videos I watched was this is just continuing on what Nick Spencer and Mark Waid have been doing, and I'm like, well, yes, that's kind of what I want to see. I want to see that a development of that story. And for me, what's interesting is I agree with you on the ambiguity. Like, I don't know where to land on this one. I love that it is setting up that Cap in some ways is clinging to maybe an idealistic notion of America, but it's not useful at this particular time. And so somebody like Bucky, he's got praxis, right? He's been through it, and so he doesn't have that kind of idealistic point of view. Sharon Carter, who's a spy, and so, of course, also is a more political animal than Steve is. But I really, really like this idea of him being a man, not out of time, but out of place right now. Like, we don't know where Cap fits in all this. And having read enough Cap, I'm like, I don't know if Cap is being too stubborn.
Actually, something you said jumped out of me, the idea that it's continuing Spencer and Waid. It seems to me to be just going right back to the end of Secret Empire and Spencer's run, and completely ignoring Waid's run, which was very nostalgic and returning Cap to the Hurt Land. And so it doesn't seem to come right out of Mark Waid. It seems to be sort of stepping backwards, and it's a lot darker and a lot more morally ambiguous. Because Waid was really recuperating Cap.
But what was interesting about Cap in this one was he's immediately quoting that Frank Miller run at Daredevil. I'm loyal to nothing but the dream.
Yes.
And Cap, straight out of Secret Empire, isn't that... It's not that he's not idealistic, but he has this sense that his legacy is tainted, that, he's going to have to fight against this image of him in the public. And so I did have this moment of whiplash where I'm like, oh, it's like Cap going back to that, but a whole bunch of stuff has happened, Cap. And you can't just be that guy who's loyal to the dream in this world. And is that the fit that doesn't... Is that not the man at a time, but the man sort of out of the times, maybe, out of step with the times.
Yeah. I'm also really interested by Cap's own disassociation of himself from Hydra Cap. Complete refusal. He refers to him as a man with my face, not an alternate version of me. He very explicitly says, that was not me. And so that idea that this alternate version of him, the idea that if he had had another life, he could have been Hydra. He could have believed in a completely different set of ideals and still been consistently who he is something that he is completely and totally rejected.
And disavowing. Yeah. And I mean, what's interesting is that some of the commentators that I read see that just as Marvel disavowing entirely what happened in Secret Empire and disavowing Hydra Cap, but I see it like you do. I think that this is an issue that's up for debate. Like, if we read Sam Wilson right now, like, he really sees Cap as someone who's been lying to him for the past 10 years, even though is it Patriot that Sam Wilson is working with? He's defending him and saying that wasn't really Steve, but Falcon, who's one of his best friends, is like, yeah, that was Steve, and he lied to me for 10 years. So I think that it is ambiguous, going back to your opening thing. I don't think we do know if this is the real Cap or some Cap that was pulled out of, the cosmic cube that is an ideal pocket universe Cap. I don't think Marvel is avoiding that. I think it is ambiguous.
Yeah, I think it very much is ambiguous. And that's actually kind of interesting both in terms of how criticism works and in terms of how the politics of comics work and how we read comics as allegory.
Yes.
Another thing that struck me was the idea of Russia and how Russia is presented. Because back when I was a child,
Russia was bad.
Russia was bad. I grew up, I came of age, I went through undergrad during the Cold War.
Yep.
Late Cold War, but still Cold War. But since '89, since Glasnost and Perestroika, we've had a Russia who is not the evil empire.
Russia was good again.
Russia was good again. And now Russia is dangerous again. So you have Selena working with the Russians.
Yeah, I know online, like, one of the YouTube videos, and we'll link it in the comments, basically said, oh yeah, this is just SJW Marvel pulling in bad Putin and bad Trump and linking them together, and it's really heavy-handed. And to me, and again, maybe it's because I've been reading so much Captain America lately, but I'm like, I just saw the echoes of previous comics. Like, this is one that's building on the entire legacy of Captain America comics. That was a direct reference to the Winter Soldier. We still have our winter, right? I think it was Lucan who said that in the original Winter Soldier run under Brubaker, or we only have our winter. And then, of course, we're bringing back direct references to the Daredevil run with Frank Miller, direct references to Nuke from that particular confrontation between Cap and Nuke. So I think it's very much Ta-Nehisi Coates going, where is America now? How do we connect America to its legacy, but also Cap, which is the writerly thing that I love that he's doing. Captain America to his written legacy in the comics. What continuity do we see there? How do we develop those storylines? So I'm really excited where it goes. The Bucky fangirl in me is a little worried that he and Cap might be at odds, but I do love this government. Cap was on the Hydra side, even though he totally disavows that part of himself. Bad people are, now being lifted up because they fought Hydra, which is good. Good people like Bucky are being rehabilitated because they fought Hydra. So it's a mess. And I think that's okay.
Yes. And in fact, that is good and interesting, because so often when you think comic book politics, it's good versus evil. And here it's really hard to get a grasp on who is good and who is evil. And being able to get out of that binary thinking might be actually what we need as a global society and national societies, getting out of us versus them.
Yeah, and I mean, I think, again, one of the complaints I'm seeing a lot of, and I think it's a fair complaint, that they're just tired of dark, dreary, morally gray Cap, that this is just getting dull and just not fun at the end of the day. And I think that's fair. Squirrel Girl's still out there.
Squirrel Girl, champions.
There's a lot of lighthearted, fun comics out there that are still doing that. And I agree. I would like to see Cap going in that direction. I don't think you can go from Secret Empire to fun action Cap that is totally divorced from politics. I don't think it's possible. I think that it takes time to do that. And even if that's something that Marvel wants to do. But I think they have to deal with the repercussions of that. And I like that. I understand for people who didn't like Secret Empire, they're just angry that it's gone in this direction, to which I will say, life is long and Marvel has been around forever, and I'm sure it will swing around at some point. But for me, I think that they're doing what they have to do, which is dealing with the repercussions of Secret Empire.
Yeah, and that's something I didn't like about the recent Waid run, because even though I really liked it, it was nostalgic and morally unambiguous in a way which seemed jarring after Secret Empire.
Yeah, and I think that this will be something we'll probably talk on a bit more. But in future, we'll maybe talk about how do you judge various runs in something like Marvel where the history is so long,
yes.
right? As critics, we're used to analyzing novels or short stories, and the text itself is this whole thing, and making a decision based on them. But here, when you have serial fiction, part of me thinks, I don't know, maybe that Mark Waid run will play into this one. I don't know yet. And I would like to see, is there, Cap taking a vacation into Nostalgia Land makes perfect sense post Secret Empire. And so I'm interested to see if Ta-Nehisi Coates' run plays on that and pulls those threads together in ways. But again, then we're getting into larger question of what Marvel is doing. Does Marvel know what it's doing? Those are larger questions.
Yeah, and I think this is something that we will be coming back to again and again, especially in terms of thinking through criticism of larger universes, which is a lot of what's going on in the focal points of pop culture at the moment.
Yeah.
Criticism of larger universes and different people having different understandings based on where they came into a universe and what universe is theirs.
And which version, which run in that universe is the real Cap and the high point of Cap storytelling. And comics are a difficult thing for fans and critics to engage with because of that really, really long history. But we look forward to having those conversations with people.
And I think that's probably a good place to tie it off for today. Leave your comments about this particular first issue in the comment section. Thanks so much.